Hi, we're going to read another story. This one's called The Invisible Boy by the glare, Trudy Ludwig. This one is not quite as goofy as the last one. As I'm reading, think about if you've ever felt the way that this little boy felt. Can you see Brian, the invisible boy? Even Mrs. Carlotti has trouble noticing him in her classroom. She's too busy dealing with Nathan and Sophie. See all the lines around them? They look like they're making a lot of noise. Sophie whines and complains when she doesn't get her way. I'm back. We're going to read a story today called The Invisible Boy by Trudy Ludwig, illustrated by Patrice Barton. Remember, the illustrator drew these cool pictures. So if you like to be an artist, maybe you could be an illustrator one day. This story isn't kind of goofy as the last story we read about the dinosaur eating his classmates. As I'm reading, think about if you've ever felt like this little boy and if you had friends that helped you. Can you see Brian, the invisible boy? Sorry, rattling the book. Even Mrs. Carlotti has trouble noticing him in her classroom. She's too busy dealing with Nathan and Sophie. Look how the illustrator made them look very loud. Nathan has problems with what Mrs. Carlotti calls volume control. He uses his outside voice inside way too much. Sophie whines and complains when she doesn't get her way. None of you ever do that. Nathan and Sophie take up a lot of space. Brian doesn't. Do you think maybe Brian's very quiet? Quiet people seem to take up a very small amount of space. When the bell rings for recess, Micah and JT take turns choosing kids for their kickball team. The best players get picked first. I was never picked first. Sports is not ever been something I've been best at. Then the best friends of the best players. Then the friends of the best friends. Only Brian is left, still waiting and hoping. JT glances in Brian's direction and just as quickly looks away. We've got enough players for each team, he tells the others. Let's play ball. And Brian walks away. In the cafeteria, Madison and her friends talk about her birthday party. The rope swing over the pool was awesome, says JT. Yeah, so was the water slide, adds Fiona. That was the best pool party ever. I'm so glad you guys had fun, says Madison. Everybody did, except Brian. He wasn't invited. At choosing time, while the other kids played board games and read, Brian sits at his table doing what he loves to do best. He draws fire-breathing dragons scaling tall buildings, space aliens locked in intergalactic battles, greedy pirates digging for treasure, and superheroes with the power to make friends wherever they go. He is an amazing artist. I wonder if anyone knows that. On Monday morning, Mrs. Carlotti introduces Justin, a new student. Brian smiles shyly at him. Some of the other kids sneak looks at Justin, trying to figure out if he's cool enough to be their friend. They haven't quite made up their minds yet. Brian looks like he wants a new friend. At lunch, Madison and JT watched Justin eat with chopsticks. What's that? Asks Madison as she points at Justin's food. It's bulgogi. I'm not really sure if I pronounced that right. What? Bulgogi. It's Korean barbecued beef. My grandma made it for me. It's really good. Do you want to try some? Would you try it? Well, we're not supposed to share food, but I would try it if I wasn't in school. There's no real way I'll eat bulgogi. How do you think that made him feel? And the kids laugh. All of them, that is, except Brian. He sits there wondering which is worse, being laughed at or feeling invisible. What do you think? I think being laughed at would be worse. The next day, when Justin goes to his cubby to put away his backpack, he notices a piece of paper with his name on it. Justin, I thought the bulgogi looked good. Brian. There's a picture of Brian eating some. How do I know that's Brian? Because he doesn't have yellow hair. At morning recess, Brian finds a piece of chalk on the ground and starts drawing away. You're Brian, right? Yeah. Thanks for the note. Hey, Justin, Emilio calls out from the tetherball court. You're next. Sorry, I gotta go, says Justin. By the way, that's a really cool drawing, he adds, before taking off. Back in class, Mrs. Carlotti asks the kids to team up in twos or threes for a special project. The kids scurry around the room to pair off. Brian heads towards Justin. I'm already with Justin, says Emilio. Find someone else. Brian looks at the floor, wishing he could draw a hole right there to swallow him up. Mrs. Carlotti said we can have up to 3 people in our group. We are only 2. Come on, Emilio, let him be with us. Okay, I guess. I like how Justin stood up for Brian. Mrs. Carlotti gives the class directions for a project. Your assignment is to work together to write a story about what you see in the photograph. Use your imagination and have fun. Whoa, cool, says Emilio. What kind of people do you think would live in houses like that? I don't know, but I bet Brian could draw them to go with our story, says Justin. Brian smiles as he takes out his lucky pen. I wonder why Brian's in color now. What do you think? I bet you're right. I think he's in color because he feels like people see him now. They worked and worked and worked and drew and colored and worked and worked and worked, and they actually wrote a story up here, just like she asked. The crooked story we made up on the spot. Look at all the images that went with it. Dinosaur, a shark, house. And this shark's eating his head. It's lunchtime again. Brian's least favorite part of the day. Another 20 minutes, another long 20 minutes of kids talking and laughing with everyone else but him. Brian! He hears someone shout. Hey, Brian, over here! Brian turns and sees Justin waving at him. Emilio nods at Brian as he makes room for him at the table. Maybe, just maybe, Brian's not invisible after all. I really like this story because I think Brian did something to help make himself not invisible. I think he helped someone else. See, Brian didn't speak up a lot, and so people stopped looking. Sometimes you have to speak up for yourself. You have to go find a friend, and you have to ask others to see you because you are special. just the way you are. This is also an AR test. The number, if you want to jot it down, is 161744. There's an assignment to go with this one as well. I believe I want you to make a video. So I'll see you next time.